Midnight hums like a machine trying not to wake the building. Perihelion is happening off camera, too close to the sun for anyone to watch directly. If the numbers bend tonight, our language bends with them, and careers pick new owners. I press rec, and the room feels a degree colder. The control room is a shallow bowl of screens and stainless edges, a NASA poster curling at one corner, the carpet thin enough to remember every chair leg. New York is somewhere beyond the blackout blinds, hissing quietly through the HVAC. The overheads are dimmed to the color of a hospital hallway at shift change. I hear the clock on the far wall hesitate before each minute. On the center monitor the MPC feed crawls in monochrome time stamps, UTC like railroad timetables, impartial and a little cruel. To my left, the residual plot waits as a blank grid, axes labeled, nothing yet daring to be a dot. The delta V floor line I drew earlier sits like tape on a gymnasium floor, a rule, not a wall. Audio check, Ben says behind me, voice pitched low like he's trying not to bruise the night. He's our exec producer, coat on the back of a chair, tie loosened but still wishing it weren't. The talkback light glows soft even though the hosts are home. We're a skeleton crew on purpose. If we're wrong, few people will remember who was here. If we're right, everyone will. Channels 1 through 4 live, I say. The recorder shows a red rectangle and a running count. My fingers hover, then land on the keyboard. I align the star catalog against last week's elements, let the script chew for 2 beats, watch the errors shrink and tremble like an animal deciding whether to bolt. Maya Hernandez comes in with a to-go cup that still smells like the deli across 11th. Her badge clacks against the lanyard, a soft metronome at her throat. She's the one we keep on speed dial when the sky stops behaving. Her hair is pulled back with the kind of care you give a knife. She leans against the edge of the console, not casual, just braced. JPL pushed a caution earlier, she says. Conjunction geometry's dirty. Expect latency, not noise. Latency means we wait for numbers, I say. Exactly. She watches my residual grid like it's a pulse. You're synced to NIST. Atomic and smug about it. Ben's phone lights up with a message from legal. He reads, doesn't react, forwards. Then my inbox blinks, policy reminders with bullet points that look like road spikes. No extraordinary language without 2 independent confirmations. No adjectives. No speculation on artificiality or propulsion. If uncertain, use candidate. Attach the disclaimer lower third for any live mention. I drag the disclaimer into the template and leave it there like a safety on a gun. 2:09 Universal Time Coordinated. The MPC feed coughs out a new line. Not ours yet, another group's radar ping. There's a gap where perihelion should feel like a drumroll. Conjunction steals eyes, not gravity. The plot stays empty. Ben murmurs into his mic that studio lighting can stay cold for the overnight insert. He likes the way the blue looks on faces when the truth isn't ready to be warm. I take a breath just long enough to notice it. The AC slides on with a whicker. The vents make the plastic plant in the corner shiver and give away that it's fake. The elevator coughs out a solitary bing 2 floors down and stops caring. We roll scripts. I ping the Southern Hemisphere relay to double-check their cadence for later. The reacquisition window won't be ours alone. We're a newsroom, not a telescope, but I've learned the rhythm: acquire, fit, push residuals, post the delta quietly to the internal list, then decide if the world needs to know now or in the morning. My mouse passes over a folder titled Hold Templates without opening it. Who signs if we need to publish? I ask. No one you can quote, Ben says, and it isn't a joke. Maya unfolds a paper napkin on the console, draws a little circle for the sun, our line of sight, a ghost of an ellipse vanishing under glare. Conjunction means we can't watch, we wait for numbers to come back around, she says. One sentence, good teacher. Perihelion is where a small push buys the most energy. I know the Oberth line, I say. And I hear the way the word lands. Not a flourish. A floor. Just saying it, she says. In case the floor moves. 2:41 Universal Time Coordinated. The first post-perihelion breadcrumb lands in the residual plot, tentative as a courtesy knock. 1. High by a whisper, within the cone of prediction. Ben raises his eyebrows and lowers them because 1. Is nothing. A minute later, the second dot appears farther along the line of flight, a hair on the far side of honest. Maya tilts her head, not explaining her body language yet. I mark both points and tap the script to refit. Thermal lag? Ben offers. Maybe, Maya says, voice even. Check the sign. If the thermal model's honest, the drift wants sunward. I check the sign. It doesn't want sunward. Could be outgassing with a weird jet, I say. We've been in vacuum long enough to not be that weird, she says, meaning the object, not us, and she sounds like she hopes to be wrong. I move the delta V floor line a pixel lower, pretend it was always there. The third point arrives, not loud, just consistent. A drift too straight to be luck, too polite to be proof. It noses in the same quiet direction the second did, a patient suggestion dragging a fingernail down the paint. What's the floor on outgassing? I ask. Lower than this, she says. Ben's chair stops squeaking. Say that again like a lawyer took your mouth, he says. Maya sips her coffee. Lower than this. With margins. No one speaks for a breath and a half. The air recalculates. I bring up the lower third draft we've been nursing for a week, interstellar object near perihelion. I delete alien. I delete engineered. I add candidate. The cursor blinks like it's counting my courage. The graph updates. The fourth and fifth points land without drama. The line they suggest is something you could lay a ruler on and not get laughed out of the room. I can feel the part of my brain that names things lean forward. The rest of my brain jams its hand against its chest to keep it seated. Maya leans closer. Her finger hovers a millimeter above the screen, not touching the pixels like they're a bruise. That's a millimeter per second sustained, she says. That's not commentary, I say before I can give myself permission. Then it's political, she says. Ben exhales sharp through his nose. It's the sound of an edit bay when someone cuts a frame too many. Political means procedure wakes up. Political means we start speaking in narrow corridors. 2:55 Universal Time Coordinated. My keycard light flashes green at the server cabinet, then red. Access changes propagate like a rumor, quick, then everywhere. I try the CMS. Our overnight segment, which an hour ago wore a green tag labeled Q, now wears a gray label I've only seen on bad days. Hold. The word is small in the corner until you think about what it does. The email explaining the hold arrives 30 seconds later, subject line polite enough to pass in daylight. Editorial pause pending review. Please do not push live assets or language beyond the prepared disclaimer. If you need to describe motion, use non-gravitational candidate. No extraordinary language without 3 independent confirmations. I forward it to Ben without a comment. He reads it like weather. We're not the telescope, he says. We're the record. That's the job, I say, and I mean it, and I don't. Maya sets her cup down with measurable care. Windows after conjunction, she says softly. Reacquisition is 4:12 to 4:37 Universal Time Coordinated. Ben points at me. Put it in the rundown, he says. I type it into a line that doesn't exist yet, a segment we may never air. Window, 4:12 to 4:37. Miss it and the geometry rolls past for a day. I add a note to ping the radio array in New Mexico, the little station in Chile, the absurdly steady folks up in Hawaii who pretend dawn is a negotiable concept. The room settles. The machines take their rhythmic breaths. The glow from the big monitor paints the edges of our faces with the same color as a winter television at 3 a.m. I try to slow my own breathing down to match the fans. It's a trick I learned after a hurricane, when the only patient heartbeat in the city was a server rack 2 floors up. 3:06 Universal Time Coordinated. The 6th point lands and makes the first 5 look like prelude. Not just sustained, cleaner. The noise shrinks away like a dog that realized it's not being fed. The drift holds its line in the wrong direction, which is the only direction a story chooses when it wants to be told carefully. I pull up the internal list, the small consortium of people who don't send press releases, who do math on napkins before they sleep. I begin a subject line, post-perihelion residuals, candidate non-gravitational. I stop before pressing return. Policy says no adjectives. Even candidate is a risk, and yet the doc tells me we'll need a word when we need a word. Ben steps away to make a call in the hallway. His shoes scrape the carpet in a way that proves the carpet should have been replaced in 2019. His voice drops into the register you use when you need someone to be reasonable. I hear, "We're not calling it," and "the language is there," and the soft curse of a man who hates commas. Maya checks her watch against the wall clock. Her eyes are calm the way the Hudson looks calm if you've never been in a kayak. "If we're seeing what it looks like we're seeing," she says, "the cone's going to lie." "Cones don't lie," I say. "People do." "Models lie when they're honest about the wrong thing," she says. 3:18 Universal Time Coordinated. The residual plot looks like the start of a staircase, a polite one in a public building, no flash, just function. I watch the geometry of our ignorance get measured in dots. My phone vibrates with a DM from legal, a human one, not a bot. "Aaron Cho, if you're drafting copy, keep it as dry as powder. We're a windscreen, not a sail." She's good. She used to fact-check medical trials for a living and still speaks like a person. Copy draft, interstellar object 3I/Atlas past perihelion during solar conjunction. Post-conjunction tracking shows a candidate non-gravitational component. Causes under review. No extraordinary language pending independent confirmation. I leave it ugly. Ugly means no one fell in love with a sentence they'll defend later. Ben comes back with a new face, the one where the mouth is straight and the eyes are downward rods. "We're green for internal publish," he says. "External on hold until at least one independent comes back with a compatible trend. Or until somebody above our pay grade makes a mistake." Who's our independent? I ask. Hawaii, if they get clear. VLA if the radio folks find a whisper. Or nobody, if the universe stays shy. I find the way the mouse clicks quieter when you're more careful. I find the way the keyboard doesn't clack so much when you think about each word before hitting it. Maya brushes her finger against the cup, the cardboard size against the sleeve. 3:26 Universal Time Coordinated. A small dropout in the feed, latency pretending to be suspense. The line of dots doesn't move backward when the data catches up, it continues like a person finishing the sentence they started before the train passed. Ben inhales like he's about to say something about breakfast and doesn't. My stomach uses the pause to remember it exists. I look up at the far corner where the exit sign glows red. It's the only warm color in the room. There's a smear on the acrylic cover from a tall person's hand, probably the fire inspection last month. It's nothing, and it is the only human mark that isn't one of ours. The hum from the server rack takes on a slightly lower note that really isn't there, the building just creaked and my ear used the excuse. 3:33 Universal Time Coordinated. An alert pings from a collaborator's script, a quiet 3-note chime that tries not to be cheerful. A Southern Hemisphere station in Chile posts a time-stamped packet to the professional list, faint acquisition, post-conjunction, poor seeing, 3 points trending in alignment with a small, persistent delta that refuses to point the way comets wish it would. Not a confirmation, not yet, but more like a hand on the same doorknob. Copy their uncertainties, Maya says. I paste the lines into our log. I note the seeing. I note the angle. I note the way the air in my chest chooses not to leave. Ben nods to himself. We give this to the morning crew clean, he says. No adjectives. Numbers, context, window. Window, I repeat. It has the same shape as a promise. 4:12 to 4:37. Don't miss it, Maya says, and I don't know if she's talking to us or the world. I open a file with a name that only makes sense if you know our habits. 3i_atlas_overnight_log_AJR_0319 UTC.txt. I write what we saw in sentences that could testify. I don't write what I felt because this isn't that kind of job, until it is. A new email blooms from legal, like a polite bruise. Reminder, the term propulsion is prohibited without 3 separate lines of evidence and written sign-off. Also prohibited, engineered, designed, transmission, message. If needed, use pattern or rhythm with attribution to a source. I close the email and take one sip of Maya's coffee because my hands had nothing else to do. Are we waiting for permission to see? I ask, not looking at anyone. We're waiting for the sky to be consistent, Maya says. Permission is for speaking. 3:44 Universal Time Coordinated. The 8th point appears and makes the 7th look lonely. I can see the future cone swerve like a road detour waved in with orange flags. It's not dramatic, not on TV terms, not even on scientist terms. It's just inexorable, which is the only trait I trust at this hour. The CMS badge over our segment still says hold. A small, gray word on a blue background, like mild weather. I hover the mouse over it and don't click like there might be an Easter egg that turns it green. Nothing happens. I take my finger off the mouse and plant my hand flat on the desk where the metal is cool. Run me through the reacquisition sequence again, Ben says, not because he forgets, a mantra is a kind of safety. Acquire, I say, fit, push residuals, publish the delta quietly to the list. And then we breathe, he says. Or we forget how, I say. He nods and looks at the clock in the way you look at a sleeping child, hoping it will cooperate. The intercom crackles. Building security is doing its hourly badge sweep. A voice in the ceiling says, all good up there, to nobody in particular. Ben answers so they don't come up and remind us the building believes in normal hours. All good, he says. Just counting seconds. He's not wrong. I'm counting. 3:51 Universal Time Coordinated. Another small packet on the professional list, this one from a radio array in Socorro. Tentative. One line. Non-detection with insensitivity. They're promising a deeper look after 4. Negative results are a language too, not a no, a not yet. Maya scrolls with 2 fingers, reading diagonally. She makes no sound when she's satisfied the message meant what it said. She looks at me and then at the residual plot, not because she needs me to do anything, just to share a field of view. I'm not sleeping after this, am I? I say. Sleep is a model, she says, deadpan, then a hint of smile. Often wrong. Something settles behind my sternum. Our line is no longer a thin suggestion, it is the godless, decent line of the thing that is. I write another sentence in the log, trend persists through 3:51, magnitude consistent, sign contradicts thermal model. Causes under review. A colleague in Chile notes similar direction at low SNR, radio array, no detection at current sensitivity. The hallway light outside the control room switches off in a slow fade. Motion sensors think we are ghosts. The city presses its ear to our windows and hears nothing worth gossiping about. 3:58 Universal Time Coordinated. A Slack DM from Aaron at Legal again, proud of the discipline, Alex. Tight is right tonight. Remember, candidate. I reply with a small check mark and a thank you because courtesy is free and sometimes it buys time later. My instinct wants adjectives. The policy wants nouns. The math wants verbs. Tell me the policy in one line, Ben says, have to remind himself, have to rehearse for the morning editorial. No extraordinary language without 3 independent confirmations, I recite. We cut adjectives. Keep the math. Good, he says. We're not here to be first. We're here to be useful on purpose. The minute ticks into 4 o'clock Universal Time Coordinated with no fanfare. It should come with a doorbell. It doesn't. The residual plot holds its slow tattoo, an orderly parade of impertinence against our best theories. I imagine the object itself, sunlight like a blowtorch on one side of whatever it is, darkness on the other like a debt. I imagine a surface giving up something that isn't gas. I stop imagining, because we don't get to do that on the record. For minutes, Maya says softly. Window in 12. Her voice turns the numbers into something like prayer. I pull up the little panel that controls the lower thirds. The disclaimer sits obediently in the queue. The title card says, 3I/Atlas, post-conjunction tracking. The subhead is the safest sentence I've ever written. Candidate non-gravitational component, causes under review. My thumb finds the corner of the switcher, presses down, releases, presses again. A habit built from hurricanes, elections, landers that bounced. Alex, Ben says, and I look at him. If the floor moves, we move with it. Not before. Copy, I say. 4:05 Universal Time Coordinated. A blank minute. The building makes a little noise like it's thinking about breathing and decides against it. The rec light on the recorder is steady, not bored. My chair finds a new creak. The clock hand touches a tick and stays there like it enjoys the feel. In my periphery, the folder of hold templates sits where it sat when the night began. I don't open it. I do a small thing instead. I rename the log file with the hour and my initials, an ownership that isn't ego, just a form of responsibility. 3i_atlas_overnight_log_ajr_0405 utc.txt. If I do this right, someone else will inherit it in the morning and never notice they were handed a heart. Maya's phone buzzes. She reads, nods once. Clouds clearing over Mauna Kea, she says. Not a guarantee. Just a rumor. Rumors are what the sky calls preview reels, Ben says reflexively, then regrets the flourish and puts the words back in his pocket. 4:08 Universal Time Coordinated. I check the time servers again because it gives my hands a job. NIST is good, GPS is smug, our local clock is an obedient child tonight. I run the little sync script that prints a green OK. I trust more than I trust most compliments. The vent over the door adds a little extra chill to the rim of my coffee. The taste is burnt walnut and fear. What's the smallest thing this could be? I ask. Bad modeling, Maya says, then shakes her head. We've already eaten those errors. The next smallest. She watches the plot. Something that pushes without looking like it pushes. Like a shadow, Ben says. Like policy, I say, and we almost smile. 4:10 Universal Time Coordinated. The pre-window nausea, anticipation, shows up, a child's elbow behind my ribs. The graph is doing nothing dramatic, which I am beginning to recognize as the drama. I type the window once more where I can't miss it, 4:12 to 4:37. If we miss it, we wait a day. The sentence drags a nail softly across the brain. Everything is where it should be, and I don't trust any of it, Ben says. That's called experience, Maya says. The first ping of the window will be a time stamp before it's a dot. I know this. I say it quietly. Ben nods like he'd already planned to nod at the right time. I glance at the recorder. Rec glows, steady as a lighthouse. In the reflection on the glass panel above it, our faces are vapor, the kind you see when you breathe too close to winter. Past the glass, the city keeps moving, indifferent or merciful or both. For 11 and 27 seconds Universal Time Coordinated. The MPC feed stutters, stalls, then spills a line as if embarrassed. The first post-conjunction reacquisition from an optical scope we trust slides into view, low SNR, but real. It is a number before it is a dot. Maya's hand lifts, then lands back on the console, a pilot not touching the yoke unless she means to fly it. Here we go, Ben whispers, and then, more firmly, here we go. A new dot kisses the grid in the exact place that makes the others stop being lonely and start being a shape. The noise lowers its voice to listen. Time stretches, not like taffy, more like a rubber band deciding not to snap yet. I breathe in and forget to let it out properly. The second dot of the window appears, and the sign is the same. Patience, discipline, wrongness in a straight line. My cursor hovers over the button that would change hold to something else if I were a different person in a different world. I'm not, and the button knows it. I don't look at Ben. I don't look at Maya. I look at the room and try to pin it to my memory by a single, ordinary detail, the way the exit sign paints a soft red trapezoid on the wall, the way the napkin under Maya's coffee cup is starting to dissolve at one corner, the way the HVAC ticks like a bicycle cooling after a long ride. Somewhere 19 floors below us, a delivery truck yawns into a curb, a man hooks a bag of bagels to his shoulder, a woman lets a dog step into a cold patch of air and reconsider everything. The world does the dull, holy work of being the world. For 12 Universal Time Coordinated arrives without asking permission. In the window. In the log. In the artery where numbers become a pulse. The phone on Ben's desk vibrates with a message he won't show me. He silences it with a flat palm, not rude, just final. Maya says nothing. She doesn't need to. The dots say it better and with fewer verbs. I open the call to our partners with a single line prepared hours ago and revised every 10 minutes since, post-conjunction reacquisition underway. Candidate non-gravitational component persists. Independent confirmations requested. Attach residuals as plotted. I do not hit send. Not yet. Outside the glass, the building across the way turns on one light 4 floors up, then another. Dawn rehearses in secret. The city's breath is longer than ours. A third point in the window prints itself on the grid, and the ruler could sleep on it, comfortable. I feel the word we are forbidden to use sit down beside me like an old friend and wait to be asked to leave. The CMS still says hold. My card light will probably turn red again if I test a door, so I don't. The policy is a wall that doesn't shout. It just stands there and I cannot fault its carpentry. Say it, Ben says, gentle. He means, say what we can say. I swallow. Numbers drift, I say. Models don't, Maya answers, automatic, a call and response we invented when we both had less to lose. On the intercom, security asks again if everything's all right. I click the button. All good, I tell the ceiling. We're still here. A notification breathes into existence. The radio array promises a second, deeper look within the window. Another email from Aaron: do not engage with external press. If contacted, refer to morning briefing. We are not in a rush to be wrong. I wish I had written that sentence. I place my hand over the recorder a moment, not touching the button, just feeling the manufactured warmth of a thing doing exactly what it was designed for. The red glow slides across my skin and calls it present. Alex, Maya says, eyes on the graph. You're logging? Every breath, I say. The next dot makes the line smile, the kind of smile that isn't pleased so much as inevitable. We are past being teased. The delta does not care who we are. The cone leans its shoulder into another truth. Window holds until 37, Ben says, like a captain, like a parent, like a person who will not say drift unless he has to. I nod. My eyes water, not because I'm dramatic, because dry air will have its way with ducts. I blink. The world returns in the same order I left it. The elevator bings for the first time in an hour. Someone else arrives on our floor. I don't turn. The door opens, doesn't close, opens again, uncertain whether the morning belongs to it yet. I hit send on the internal call. The subject line says what it must. The attachments carry dots that look like patients organized into a sentence. I do not copy anyone outside the list we trust. The server rack drops a note. The AC hesitates. The exit sign keeps its red intact. The city remembers how to be a city. Somewhere in the hallway, a pair of footsteps stops, listens, then decides we're not the story that needs a visit. Fine. Not yet. I glance at the small digital clock on my desk, the one I bought used from a prop house in Queens. It ticks with a conviction I envy. We have 23 minutes before the window closes. And for the first time tonight, the room feels colder again. The window opens like a throat clearing. For 12 universal time coordinated clicks into the room without sound, and we move in the choreography we rehearsed because rehearsal is the only way to make courage look like procedure. Acquire. Fit. Push residuals. Publish the delta quietly. Breathe on purpose. Ben slides to the comms bay, headset crooked, posture squared like a man pretending to be furniture so he won't startle the moment. Maya stands half-turned to the main monitor, the napkin with her sketch of conjunction weighted by an empty paper cup. I anchor at the console, MPC feed left, residual plot center, CMS and legal on the right, a third screen running time servers I watch like weather. The recorder's red I hold steady. Rec is a lighthouse. I keep it in the edge of my vision the way you keep a horizon where your stomach can see it. Copy Hawaii on channel 2, Ben says, fingers on the fader. Mauna Kea Ops, this is AJR Desk New York. We read your pre-window. Standing by for first cut. Static, then a voice with the comfortable altitude of a person who breathes thin air for a living. Copy, New York. Seeing is improving. We'll drop in the first 3 if the guiding holds. No promises, only numbers. Numbers are a kind of promise, I say into the room, not the line. Maya watches the residual plot like it's a slow heartbeat. Alex, you're set to UTC locked in jest? Doubly smug, I say. The sync script throws me another green OK. GPS agrees. NIST agrees. Our cheap wall clock nods along, earnest and slightly behind, like a friend who's trying. The first dot of the window arrives exactly where a modest person would put a truth they're not ready to defend. The second dot follows with the same sign, like a companion who stayed for the right reasons. The third kisses the board and makes a line you could teach in elementary school. Fit 1, Maya says. I fit. The residuals pare down into a disciplined stare. The magnitude nudges past the thermal model. The sign stays wrong for comets and right for arguments. Push the delta, Ben says. Internal list only. No adjectives. I push. The software spits a polite confirmation to the quiet list with the long name only we use. Subject, 3i/Atlas post-conjunction residual update, for 16 to 4/19 universal time coordinated. Body, residual trend persistent, candidate non-gravitational component consistent with pre-window drift, causes under review, uncertainties attached. Attachments, the plot, the table, the kind of sentence that will age better than we do. Legal pings a blue banner at the top of my screen. Reminder, do not characterize pattern as rhythm or message. Use trend or periodicity candidate, with caveats. Attach disclaimer. Aaron adds a human line under the boilerplate, proud of the restraint. Keep it boring. We can be brave and boring at the same time. I copy the disclaimer into the lower third template again, though it's already there. The act steadies the hands. The cup beside Maya's napkin leaves a damp ring like a partial eclipse. On channel 3, the very large array gives us "they're not yet." Socorro here. We've deepened by 10 dB. No detection at current sensitivity. We'll repoint at 425 for a second try. Negative space is still space. I note it. I feed it into the log. The truth is allowed to include what we cannot hear. Chilly? Ben asks, button lit. Copy New York, a woman answers, voice dressed in wind. Seeing is marginal. 3 points trending shallowly sunward contrary. We need 4 more to say anything we won't take back. We respect taking back, Ben says, and lets her go. Maya exhales through her nose, a measured ribbon of air. If it keeps this sign for 10 more minutes, she says, we're out of comet country. Say that again like we're in a deposition, I say. She softens each word until it fits a courtroom. If the sign persists through the window with current magnitude and direction, a sublimation-driven model becomes less credible. We let the air recalibrate. The room's noise floor has a timbre you only hear at this hour, HVAC whisper, server breath, the faintest tick from a fluorescent ballast that should have been replaced. Across 11th Avenue, a refrigerated truck hiccups to a stop and holds. The city's arteries keep their schedule. Plan B? Ben says, not because we need it now, because ritual keeps the wolf on the other side of the door. Radio confirmation if VLA gets lucky, I say. Infrared from Palomar if they wake up cranky but generous. Fallback on ground track geometry tomorrow if the window goes murky. Plan C, he says. Say less with more evidence, I say. He grunts, which is the sound agreement makes when it puts on a tie. For 21 Universal Time Coordinated. The residuals march. The cone of prediction leans the wrong way like a sign bent by the last storm. I mark the points. I back up the log. I hash the packet with SHA-256 and paste the fingerprint into the footer because integrity loves receipts. The string of alphanumerics looks like a prayer written by a patient machine. I open the to form in a tab I've visited from time to time without touching. The fields blink innocently: target, coordinates, time window, brief justification. There's a radio button labeled urgency with 3 options: routine, elevated, critical. I do not touch it. Not yet. Do we have standing? I ask, eyes on the form. Professionally? Yes, Maya says. Politically? Ask a wall. I glance at the CMS. Hold is still gray and quiet and correct like a speed limit outside a school. I could resent the word. I decide to respect it. My resentment has never improved anyone's math. Draft the 2, Ben says. Don't submit. I draft. Target, 3I/Atlas. Window, 412 to 437 Universal Time Coordinated, updates forthcoming. Justification, candidate non-gravitational residual component persistent post-conjunction, independent confirmation sought to constrain model space, no interpretive language requested. I paste in the hash. I attach the plot and table. I leave urgency unclicked, like a promise to my future self that I will remain who I said I was when the room was colder. Hawaii breaks in again. New York, we have 5 additional points. Guiding is good. Trend remains. Magnitude slightly higher, error shrinking. Ben looks at Maya. She gives a fractional nod. That's all the ceremony this will get. Fit 2, she says. I fit. The line tightens. The drift favors intent without claiming it. The phrase "that's illegal to say" sits in the corner like a childhood friend we won't introduce because the room is not built for them. Say the small thing, Ben says. He means, say the least that is still the truth. The trend is robust, I say. Direction is non-sunward. Magnitude above outgassing floor with current assumptions. Candidate non-gravitational component persists. He repeats it into the log, word for word, so we're married to our caution. Aaron's bubble pops up. If you're tempted to say, engineered, say, we don't know. If you're tempted to say, propulsion, say, force not captured by model. That goes for on camera, off camera, and the words you think inside your skull. Copy, legal, Ben says to his screen like the camera is already rolling. Copy, skull. The building's motion sensor kills the hallway lights for 5 seconds and then remembers we exist. The brief darkness is a hint of theater we didn't ask for. When it returns, the corridor looks like a set that hasn't learned its lines. 4:27 Universal Time Coordinated. Socorro again. We have a whisper. Not a line. Not noise I love. Call it a flirtation. The operator clears his throat. We'll share the power spectrum if you promise to hate it with us. Hate is free tonight, I say. Send it. The plot they share is a smear of humility. I file it under not yet and feel better for the attempt. Maya's phone vibrates with a text she shows me without comment. A colleague at a Midwestern observatory promises a dawn slot, if the board permits. The phrase says more about procedure than urgency. She replies with thanks, not pressure. Professionalism is a dialect. We speak it even when we want to shout. Ben, I say, I'm going to change the lower third subhead to causes under active review instead of under review. It buys us a verb. Good, he says. Verbs remind people we moved. I make the change. The sentence looks almost proud of itself for doing the dishes. For more dots settle into the plot, patient stones in a path you didn't think was there until you stood at a particular angle. The delta is a modest citizen with a consistent opinion, stubborn as good weather. The noise floor lowers, the air brightens by nothing you can measure. Say the number, Ben says. Maya says it without drama. Order millimeters per second, sustained. That's not commentary under current assumptions. And not a headline, Ben says. No, she says. A responsibility. I commit the line to the log, delta V, mm/s sustained, sign non-sunward, thermal model inconsistent, systematic under review. The characters look like a barcode for doubt. I open a new email to the professional list, no PR, no subject line a producer can love. We state the window slices, the fit parameters, the covariance, the error we refuse to bury. I specify the instruments. I specify the weather. I specify the time standards used. I specify what we don't know. I attach the hash. Transparency is a kind of seatbelt. It leaves a mark you can show a court. Hash the packet publicly, Maya says softly. You sure? Ben asks. We said we believe in receipts, she says. Let's believe in them out loud. I generate the hash again in a separate terminal, paste it at the top as well as the bottom. Redundant honesty. I save before my hand can think to tremble. 4:31 Universal Time Coordinated. The room knows its lines now. Acquire. Fit. Push. Publish. The cadence makes a kind of rhythm I won't name. The monitor glow keeps our faces cool. The exit sign keeps the only warm color like a secret in a coat pocket. Aaron sends one more note, if you file a 2, mark urgency as elevated, not critical. Critical invites a meeting. Meetings kill windows. 3 sentences that belong on a plaque. Mark it elevated, Ben says. Submit at 34 if the trend holds. I hover over the radio button. Elevated looks immodest in a way that critical doesn't, because critical is a siren and elevated is a raised hand. I click it. The form accepts my confession. I attach the plot and the table. I paste the hash once more, because I'm a believer now. Read me your justification out loud, Ben says. I read. Target of opportunity request, candidate non-gravitational acceleration persists post-conjunction, direction inconsistent with sunward outgassing, magnitude above model floor, independent confirmation sought across modalities, no interpretive claims requested. Submit, he says, and the word is a clean cut. I press the button. The spinner makes a discrete circle and then a softer, smaller one, as if not to disturb the air. The confirmation page appears with a ticket number no poet would envy. Logged, I say. Logged, Ben repeats. We just wrote down a thing that may get us yelled at for being careful. Maya smiles with only half her mouth. That's the shape of a good week. Channel 2 clears its throat. Hawaii again. New York, we have periodicity candidates in the residual spacing. Could be sampling artifacts. Could also be. I won't say it. You tell me what to call it. Maya's eyes narrow a fraction. Send raw. We'll fold it with ours. They send. I slide our points and there's into a plain tool that hates style and loves math. A timing structure emerges at the edge of what we should trust. Not a message. Not a voice. A schedule? A protocol? The words are crowded with consequences. Careful, Maya says, and I'm already being careful. It might just be the heartbeat of our own sampling. I write the smallest thing, spacing consistent with periodicity candidate at, value, plus or minus, error, likely sampling artifact, requires independent cadence. I attach nothing that looks like a drum. 4:36 Universal Time Coordinated. The last minutes of the window are the kind that teach you to forgive the past for its silence. The 9th and 10th points arrive like people who don't want to make a scene but also didn't come to stand in corners. The line is the line. The cone is not honest anymore. I put that sentence in the log with a lawyer's diction. Prediction cone underestimates displacement under current assumptions. It is the most radical sentence that could pass for polite. Window closing, Ben says. Say your last, then let time do the rest. Last, I say, to myself. I tab through everything in a ritual close, script saved, hash printed, plot versioned, disclaimer attached, recorder time coded. I add one line to the bottom of the overnight log, window, for 12 to 4:37 Universal Time Coordinated captured. Additional observation windows requested. We recommend silence outside professional channels until independent confirmations report. It reads like fence instructions around something unreasonably beautiful. A message from the 2 committee lands with a soft bell that feels like permission. Acknowledged. Queued. Elevated. No promises. We respect no promises. They're the only faithful kind. I push the internal update. I open the professional list and drop the new fit with the fresh points. I keep every sentence graceless. The letters know they are doing work more important than looking good. The clock turns 4:37 Universal Time Coordinated, and the room doesn't change, except we do. The plot waits for tomorrow's geometry. The city starts brewing coffee in buildings we'll never enter. A delivery person leans on a counter and decides to like someone's dog. We sit in the cold glow. No one announces victory. There isn't one. No one says fear. There is some. The policy still says hold. The word is still small. The wall is still strong. I love the wall for being the shape we push against. Say the thing we can put on air when they wake up, Ben says. I read from the line I wrote an hour ago and hated for its plainness. Interstellar Object 3I/Atlas cleared solar conjunction overnight. Post-conjunction tracking shows a candidate non-gravitational component. Causes are under active review. No extraordinary language until independent confirmations report. He nods. It's the right kind of boring. Maya gathers her cup and napkin. The napkin's eclipse ring has blurred into a pale comet tail. She looks at me with a question I can't hear yet, and then away at the plot, where the dots keep their grievance civilized. Socorro will try again at 5, Ben says. Midwest might get a dawn scan if they win their meeting. We could get infrared by mid-morning if the board gets out of its own way. And if the pattern holds across cadence? I ask. Then the day gets longer, he says. My phone vibrates with a text from a junior producer who is not in the room. Do we have anything sexy? I type back, no. We have something important. It is the only sentence I can live with. I rename the packet again, a new hour in the file name, a small act of faith in the continuity of work, 3i_atlas_window_update_AJR_0437UTC.zip. I drag it into the archive structure we designed like a spine, dated folders, hash logs, readme files we promised future us we would keep neat. Future us deserves good ancestors. We're almost done moving for this window. The room finds its idle. The servers purr like overworked pets. The exit sign throws its tiny trapezoid the same as it did when we were more ignorant 12,000 seconds ago. Ben rubs his eyes with the heel of his hand. We'll stand up a quiet explainer for the internal site at 7, he says. No graphic beyond the residuals. No adjectives. A timeline with 3 verbs. People like verbs. People like villains, Maya says. The villain is delay, I say. Delay pays the mortgage, Ben says. Let's not make it the bad guy on television. I swivel back to the 2 tab and refresh like it might age faster if I stare. It shows the same ticket number, the same waiting dignity. No one has told us no. No one has told us yes. The middle is a street we know well. I lift my hand above the recorder one last time, close enough to feel the heat, far enough not to tempt habit. The red light glows with the same rational mercy as always. The room hears nothing, and still, everything. Okay, Ben says, and the word eases the gears. We made the window. We didn't miss it, Maya says, and the difference matters. I write the smallest thank you in my head to the parts of the night that refuse to break, the internet, the cable in the wall that has chewed insulation, the underpaid security guard who didn't decide we were suspicious, the coffee that degraded gracefully into its baton. Outside, along the river, a ferry horn calls to no one who can answer. The sound travels into glass and settles. We sit with what we didn't say. The room is colder again. The line on the plot is the same. And somewhere between the last dot and the next, the cadence in our residuals, too tidy for chance. Too soft for speech, waits for someone else to hear it and say it out loud without breaking anything we can't fix. The room learns silence in new shapes. After 4:37 Universal Time Coordinated, the machines keep their patient pulse, but the air between them grows deliberate, as if the building has joined our decision to breathe less. Ben lowers his headset to the desk like it's something that might wake, then thinks better and hangs it neatly on the arm. Maya wipes the damp ring off her napkin with the back of a sleeve and doesn't swap it for a fresh one. The rec light doesn't blink. It never does. I keep it at the edge of my vision anyway, a small red oath that doesn't ask for witnesses. Inbox, 0 replies at first, then the respectable avalanche of automatic manners, received, acknowledged, will review, each stamped by servers that sleep better than people. Our 2 ticket sits at the top of its queue like an obedient suitcase. Elevated. No promises. The CMS holds the word hold. The word behaves like a wall that's proud to be load-bearing. We don't talk for a minute. The residual plot is still on screen, a tidy staircase that offends no one except our models. I add a timestamp to the log, because timestamps are how you confess without telling stories. Trend persists. Window closed clean. Next opportunities, radio, 05:00 plus, Midwest dawn, board dependent, infrared, contingent. The keys make a sound that isn't quite typing. It's more like rain rehearsing. Ben exhales. We'll keep the rundown dry, he says, not to me or Maya, but to the room. Lower third, disclaimer, 1 plot. No VO adjectives. 2 verbs. Cleared. Tracking. No shows, I say. Shows sounds like we want applause, he answers. Maya scrolls the pro list with her eyes half-lidded, the way a pianist schemes a new piece, hunting for the bar that will nick a finger. Chili just added 4, she says. Shallow agreement. They widened error bars rather than fight them. Brave, Ben says. Accurate, Maya says. Somewhere down the corridor, a janitor's cart taps a steel door with the soft apology of rubber. The hallway lights dim, wake, dim. The motion sensor has opinions. I add a second hash to the packet and paste both into the log footer, a belt after suspenders after a good habit. The hex string sits there like a printed heartbeat, impersonal, reliable, unafraid. At 4:52, the first human reply better than an auto-reply arrives from a small optical station in Arizona. Subject line lowercase. Saw the drift, not ready to call the sign. I paste their 2 images into our local, run a quick alignment, and see why they hedged. Their bloat eats the corners of certainty. Still, the dots lean the way ours lean. I write the smallest thing, compatible within seeing, non-committal sign. Attach, courtesy fit. No adjectives. My restraint feels like flossing after a funeral. By 5:03, Socorro keeps its promise. The second radio attempt comes with the subject line any scientist earns by losing arguments with weather for a decade, we may hate this less. The plot is shy, power barely above the noise, a suggestion that could be courage or coincidence. Maya leans in so far I can hear cotton move on her sleeve. Not validation, she says. Not noise either. Put it under living maybe, Ben says. We have no such folder. I create one and name it maybe_living like a joke I promise to rename later. The city lifts its blinds slat by slat. A ferry sighs on the Hudson and makes a ripple that asphalt will never learn. I push our 5:10 update to the list with time slices, disclaimers, and the politest request for independent cadence. The first reply is an automatic vacation bounce from a person at a prestigious European institute. Out till Monday. I attach that to nothing and smile like a person who knows the Earth has the indecency to rotate. At 5:19, the Midwest board either woke in a generous mood or drank efficient coffee. Dawn slot granted, the note says, followed by format demands only someone with tenure would invent. We send them exactly what they asked for. Ben murmurs, thank you, Ghost Committee under his breath and puts a check mark next to a box that didn't exist at midnight. Then the silence changes shape again. It becomes the kind you hear in exam halls, in courtrooms before the judge comes in, by hospital beds when monitors are working too well. The pro list stops pinging for 8 full minutes. The HVAC takes a new register. A passerby laughs once in the hallway, stops, moves on. The building seems to remember its lease. I click open the internal CMS explainer and start laying out the bones readers like to put their hands on, timeline on the left, data slices on the right, how we know, and what we don't, in evenly matched boxes. No heroes. No villains. Policy gets a line equal to physics. Aaron replies to a draft in under a minute, swap pattern for trend in the intro, keep pattern for later if we must wield it. She adds a smiley I don't trust and cannot dislike. Maya sets a small external speaker on the console and plugs it into a rescue feed from a West Coast array that sometimes catches things our eyes can't. It's a translation of nothing into sound, the hiss of space interpreted as a soft band of static, with a trick built into the walkie code that throws a click when power rises above a set line. It clicks so rarely the building thinks it's made a joke. We keep it low, not because we're romantic, but because loud turns scientific into cinematic, and cinematic kills accuracy for sport. At 5:37, a packet lands from Hawaii with their unapologetic clarity. 5 more points. Error contracting. The line tightens like a taut thought. They've folded our cadence into theirs. The spacing between points makes the software quiver the way a compass needle does when it realizes the map lied. If you stand back from the plot like it's a painting, there's a sense of intervals that don't cuddle with randomness. Maya's eyebrows rise, then discipline themselves. Sampling, she says, preemptively. Sampling is a kind of prayer, Ben says. Prayer doesn't make a metronome, she says, and then shakes her head, annoyed at herself for talking pretty. We fold their slices, wary, conscious of the traps of wishful symmetry. The spacing survives stress that should smear it. Not a message. Not a voice. A cadence, maybe, a duty cycle, a schedule, a protocol. The words line up on my tongue and refuse to stand still. I write, periodicity candidate at, value, plus or minus, error, likely cadence artifact, further independent cadence required. I copy legal's forbidden words to remind myself why we earn our dental plans. I add a footnote that will make future me proud. All periods may reflect shutter timing or attitude correction cycles, do not interpret. I paste the hash again because superstition is just prudence wearing beads. The first news aggregator emails our general tip line at 5:45 with the subject "Please confirm, is it artificial?" The body is a loaf of bait. Ben forwards it to Aaron, who replies with a sentence that will someday be in a museum of responsible communications: "We have nothing for you at this time." 5 words. A mercy and a lock. By 6:03, the Midwest group sends their dawn attempt. Seeing is biblical, but their centroiding is sincere. They plot 5 points where 4 would have been courtesy. The sign is ours. The magnitude is shy but not ashamed. We think we agree, the PI writes, but the board wants a number it can memorize. Ben laughs once. Boards love numbers like children love animals. Boards hate uncertainty like children hate naps, Maya says. I add the Midwest to the log with a ring of respect around the line that matters, independent fit compatible with non-sunward sign. Causes under review. Our cautious nouns map clean. A second email from a smaller college telescope denies any anomaly at all, 3 dots in the cone, no drift. I write that down too, not as a correction, but as a necessary neighbor. The night rarely picks one truth and throws the rest in a river. It makes a braid and asks us to stop pretending we don't see water. Someone from upstairs, the kind of executive who thinks floors are weather, texts Ben, "If this becomes something, make sure we own the narrative." He answers with the screen cap of our policy: no extraordinary language without 3 independent confirmations. Owning is not a verb that fits our mouth right now. He puts the phone face down and lets it think about itself. Security knocks lightly as if asking the door for consent. The guard's face, when he leans in, is the kind you see on people who keep holidays for other people. "Anything I should loop the morning team on?" he asks, decent curiosity tripping over professionalism. "We're counting seconds," Ben says. "Copy," the guard says, amused, and wanders off into a building that believes in beginnings. The hallway fills with the sound of coffee finding cups. Workday boots scuff the elevator. A producer from a different desk peeks in with that particular tone people use when they smell thunder. "You guys on something?" Ben sacrifices exactly 9 words. "We're on caution and math. You'll see when you see." She retreats with dignity and a screenshot. At 6:22, the West Coast array clicks twice in half a minute, soft, polite ticks, not a drum. Maya raises a palm without looking at us. The residual plot doesn't care about the speaker, but our bodies do. I lower the volume until the clicks become the memory of a click. The phone buzzes again. Aaron, ignore the aggregators. If any reporter calls your personal, don't perform, refer to morning note. Also, get a bagel. Lawyering knows when your blood sugar is a security risk. The internal sites explainer is almost ready. I list the timeline with a miser's love for details, perihelion off camera. Conjunction latency. Window 412 to 437. Residuals persistent. 2 filed elevated. Independent attempts, Chile, marginal, trending, Hawaii, improving, consistent, Socorro, borderline, second look, Midwest, compatible, College X, null. Policy. 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 I drop in the residual plot that looks like patience. I drop in a line that looks like a spine. Transparency is not speed, it's structure. At 6:44, an astronomer we respect for her indifference to fashion writes 3 sentences in a style that could survive war. Your trend is the kind of thing I don't sleep for. The sign bothers me in the right way. I am not your confirmation. I paste her sentences into a private note titled "We are not alone in our caution," and feel, for a second, like the room just let me unclench a fist. Ben steps out to the hallway and makes 3 phone calls at a volume that considers other species. He says, "We are not calling anything," and "We have enough for internal," and, once, "If you publish a rumor I will personally send you a year's supply of dictionaries." He comes back looking like all the verbs he used. Maya drags her knuckle under one line of the plot and leaves no trace. If it's a protocol, she says, mined on a problem far from us, it might not be for us. Who would it be for? I ask. Whatever it needs to keep safe, she says, so quiet I almost file it as air. The word safe makes a small room inside my chest. I picture 3I/Atlas as a thing that isn't a ship and isn't a rock, running a checklist against a world that cannot see it directly. A duty cycle. A quarantine. A lock. The forbidden nouns sit on a shelf behind legal's list and watch me watch them. I open the log and write what I'm allowed. Observed spacing may reflect an operational duty cycle in unknown process. Human meaning hypotheses are outside scope. The sentence is ugly. It will age better than me. At 7:02, the building becomes daytime. The blinds blush, the overhead steady from blue to honest. The executive producers begin their procession past our door like weather fronts in suits. Some of them nod. A few try to catch Ben's eye and fail because he is looking at the clock, which continues to move regardless of salary. We publish the internal explainer at 7:10. It's as boring as a good oath. We send the pro list one more plot with one more sentence. We request independent cadence analysis from teams with dissimilar sampling. The replies resume their respectful tempo. We'll try by noon. Board permitting. Clouds. No joy. Looking. The chorus is a hymn sung by people who don't like hymns. I take my hand off the recorder and rub the warmth into my fingers. The rec light remains itself. No one ever thanks it. The exit sign throws its small red trapezoid in the same place as at midnight. Proof of a world that kept its own word while we argued with ours. A junior anchor, hair still learning where to lie, pokes her head in and whispers like a person at a museum. Is it real? Ben tilts his head and replaces "real" with a sentence. It's consistent, he says. And it's patient. She nods, which means she understood either the sentence or the tone, and leaves us with our friendship with verbs. The locker of morning segments creaks open in my CMS view. Our slot wears hold like a scarf you wear in August because a doctor told you to. I can imagine a version of me reaching for it because discipline is exhausting when breakfast smells like certainty. I don't touch it. The West Coast array gives one more polite click and then nothing at all, which feels like a favor. The pro list gets quiet again. The city finishes deciding who will be late and who will be forgiven. Maya finishes her coffee and reads the bottom of the cup like coffee might keep secrets from physics. Alex, Ben says, soft enough the security camera can pretend we didn't talk. What's the smallest correct sentence for the room upstairs? I look at the plot. I look at the emails. I look at the 2-ticket number, plain as a parking stub. I think of the vacuum pressing evenly on everything that ever wanted to be a drum. The numbers keep their promise, I say. We keep ours. He nods. We can live with that. I add a line to the overnight log, a line that points forward without pointing at anything it shouldn't. Cadence analysis pending. Recommend continued restraint in public language. Recommend expansion of coverage windows across modalities. It's a map that refuses to lie about the fog. Maya stands, stretches without admitting to pain. I'll go upstairs, she says. Answer questions no one should ask and give them answers they don't deserve. Bring back bagels, Ben says. She pauses at the door, fingertips grazing the frame like a violinist finding a note. If the intervals hold across independent cadence, she says, we'll stop asking what it is and start asking what it does. The door closes behind her with a hush that belongs in libraries. I sit with the plot, the logs, the hash, the window that will open again on a sky that does not care for our schedules. A new email lands from the Hawaii PI. Subject, folded against your cadence. 2 attachments. The short sentence under them, the spacing looks cleaner today. Might be artifact, might be design. We won't say which. I open the files, and in the noise that doesn't care what I think, a shape breathes, not a voice, not a message, just a consistent insistence on being as it is. I don't let the word design touch my tongue. I write the small sentence that fits inside policy and still points at the horizon. Interval stability improved when folded against second independent cadence, interpretation deferred. The newsroom on the other side of the glass brightens. Someone laughs too loudly, which means they slept. The intercom clicks. Security, all good up there? It's our ritual. I press the talkback. All good. Still counting. Ben taps the hold label on the CMS as if it's a fish tank he refuses to feed. We'll know more by noon, he says, which is technically a version of hope. He looks at me, at the recorder, at the exit sign. Alex, he says, almost a question. If the cadence is a protocol, what's it keeping safe? The question sits between us like a third cup we didn't pour. The speaker on the console stays quiet. The plot holds its breath. The rec light glows, undramatic, in place. And somewhere behind legal's list of forbidden nouns, a smaller, older word leans forward, waiting to see whether we'll bring it into the room or let the numbers say it for us. The morning hardens into clarity the way frost finds glass, quietly, completely, without asking your opinion. By 9:10, the inbox is a grid of receipts and careful sentences. The pro list hums at a steadier cadence. The residual plot, now fed by 3 hemispheres and 2 wavelengths, keeps its slant like a belief that learned to wear a lab coat. Ben stands with one hand on the back of my chair, eyes on the center monitor. Maya has the Hawaii fold open on her laptop. The Midwest fold on mine, the Socorro borderline, on a second screen that refuses to be ashamed of being almost. The numbers agree, Ben says, then corrects himself. They agree with themselves. Maya taps the plot and nods once. Delta V at millimeters per second. Sustained. Non-sunward. Thermal is out of goodwill. She doesn't smile. You don't smile when gravity loses a minor argument. I write what's true in the smallest words we own, cone not honest under current assumptions, residual drift sustained, magnitude above outgassing floor, sign inconsistent with cometary models, systematics probed and insufficient. The line looks like a court's idea of poetry. Upstairs wants phrases. We give them verbs. Cleared. Tracking. Persisted. Requested. The policy line gets its own slide, frame, and reverent font. No extraordinary language without 3 independent confirmations. We have them now, in the polite sense, compatible fits across dissimilar sampling. It doesn't change the sentence. It changes how long we hold it. Explain like I'm awake, Ben says, rehearsing for the editorial table that treats coffee like due process. Perihelion gave us heat, Maya says. Postconjunction gave us time. If a small push happens where velocity is highest, she taps the plot once, you buy energy for cheap. Oberth isn't a metaphor, it's a sale. Ben opens his palm. And what paid? Not dust, she says. Not sunlight. The room doesn't cheer. It tightens. The HVAC throws a colder tone. On the west wall, the exit sign draws its usual red trapezoid. Everything that can stay ordinary does, as if decency is a ritual you keep so other things don't break. Erin slips in with the quiet of someone who knows where the cameras can't see. If you speak upstairs, she says, looking at me, keep the sentence shaped like, we observed X, Y did not explain X, Z remains unknown. Do not let unknown become the headline. Let it be the floor. Ben gestures at the residual plot. They'll ask if it's a message. Say protocol if you must say a noun, Erin says. Say duty cycle. Say operational. And then say out of scope. I nod because nodding is how you tell a room you still have hands. I print the time-stamped packet list, staple it with the office's last respectable stapler, and feel the small authority of paper press against my palm. At 9:42, we walk the explainer upstairs. The conference room is glass and winter light. Producers sit with post-it flags on their laptops like they're about to draft a constitution out of rectangles. The senior EP, a woman who has seen 10 panics and reported only 3, folds her arms and tracks the plot without blinking. What is it? She says, neutral as weather. Numbers, Ben says. Numbers that did what? Refused to be explained by dust and sunlight, Maya answers. Call it, someone says. Not the EP, someone newer. A person whose business model believes in cliffhangers. Erin's voice can sand furniture. We will not. I keep my sentences plain enough to copy and paste without breaking grammar. Post-conjunction residuals show a sustained non-sunward drift at millimeters per second. Our thermal and radiation models don't clear it. Independent teams reproduce the drift with dissimilar cadence. We filed a target of opportunity and asked for more eyes. We are not calling anything. English, not math, the newcomer tries again. Is it doing something? It's controlling something, Maya says, and the table tilts toward her. Not talking. Acting. If there's a protocol, it's not for us. The room absorbs that and pretends not to feel it. The EP flicks her pen twice. On air, we show the residuals. We speak the policy. We say we ask the world to check our homework. We keep adjectives asleep. If anyone says engineered, the control room kills audio. Copy, Ben says. We return to our floor and the smaller air. The monitors glow the way they always do when a building behaves. The speaker on the console issues one soft click, then patience. I push an internal bulletin to the site, a sober timeline, a single plot, the upright sentence about restraint. It lands without applause, which is the correct applause. At 10:15, a package arrives from a mid-altitude telescope near Reno. Their local seeing is nothing to write a novel about, their cadence, however, is the kind that makes artifacts confess. We fold their points against Hawaii's cadence. The spacing doesn't smear. It sharpens, like a jawline in good light. Say it, Ben says, because someone has to. Periodicity is not dismissed by cadence, I answer. Not confirmed. Not dismissed. He breathes out. We feed that upstairs, carefully. We put it in the pro list with the word candidate tattooed on it. Aaron leans over my shoulder and edits with a fingertip. Candidate operational cycle. That phrase buys us a week. Maya keeps her eyes on the main plot. It buys us responsibility, she says. The EP sends down a note, anchor copy locked. Lower third, interstellar object cleared conjunction, tracking continues, causes under review. The restraint reads like a moral victory we didn't earn but are grateful to inherit. At 11:02, the pro list lights up with the sort of emails that make you grateful for capital letters used sparingly. A radio group in New Mexico says, no joy. A small optical array in Florida says, compatible. Chile says, weather. Mauna Kea says, later. The messages stack into a rhythm of their own, human duty cycle against whatever the object is doing, a choreography of humility. The math stops resisting. It also stops helping. Every variable we feed it resolves into a shape with no name we're allowed to say. The curve fits like it learned us, not the sky. The more we agree, the less we know. Where does that leave us? Ben asks. Exactly where we promised, I say. At the log. At the archive. Maya nods, as if we've passed an exam no one else will grade. She opens a clean directory and names it with an honesty that forgoes drama. 3i_atlas_operational_candidates. Inside it she places our folds, our residuals, our hashes, and a text file titled read_me_first that begins with 3 sentences anyone can live with. What we saw. What we tried. What we will not claim. I write the summary line I thought I'd never get to write without flinching. At mm/s sustained, the cone stops being honest. Full stop. No italics. The sentence is a door no one walks through on television. We hang it anyway, frame level, glass clean. Aaron signs off on the noon plan. We point at the numbers and at our policy, she says. We tell the audience we asked for help. We do not offer romance. If they want romance, they can go outside and look at the sky. Ben grins at that without teeth. We can sell that. The West Coast array clicks once more. The newsroom behind our glass slips into the lunch cadence, sad salads, emails with subject lines that overpromise, quick edits that try too hard. Our room does none of that. It narrows. It cools. It becomes a place that can host a decision without making a scene. Alex, Maya says, eyes still on the plot. We should archive the whole thing now. Not as proof. As memory. I open the archiver. It breathes like a careful animal. I select directories that smell like work, not theater. Logs. Fits. Folds. Emails reduced to headers. Legal notes reduced to the lines that matter. The packet builds in a sidebar, size creeping up, a progress bar that refuses to rush. What do we call it? Ben asks. Something dull and permanent, I say. AJR_atlas_post-conjunction_memory_1100z.tgz. Aaron nods. Good. Memory is safer than evidence. Memory forgives being early. I hash the tarball. The string blooms across my screen, an alphabet for caution. I paste it at the top of a text file and at the bottom and into the subject line of an email addressed to the pro list with the kind of humility that can be verified, archive available on request, contents enumerated, hash attached, no interpretive claims. I hover over send and let the room make its case. The rec light glows. The exit sign glows. The residual line angles into a space maps don't own. Somewhere in the building a microwave door snaps shut like a sentence ending. Send, Ben says. I send. The packet leaves like a careful secret told to the right friend. We sit in the quiet we made on purpose. Upstairs pings the rundown. We're slotted at 12:07, after a mayor, before a market. Ben reads the copy out loud one more time and the words sound like they could survive facts. Maya checks the folds in a way that makes time a metronome. Aaron smooths a wrinkle no one else can see. I rest my fingertips above the recorder, close enough to feel the warmth, far enough to prove I can resist habit. The room holds still. If it's a protocol, Ben says, voice low, and it's not for us, who hears it? Maya answers with the smallest truth. Whoever needs to. We don't move. The light stays cold. The line stays steady. Somewhere outside, the city decides again to be a city. Softly, a new message lands. Subject, target of opportunity, approved. No exclamation point. No fanfare. A time slot. A window. Coordinates. The kind of permission that looks exactly like another responsibility. Ben looks at me. I look at the rec light. The room is 1 degree colder. Then we keep counting, I say. And if it answers, he asks. We listen to the machines breathe. We listen to the building keep its oath. The question hangs in the air like a thin wire you only see when light respects it. Morning comes on like a held breath finally exhaled. New York looks the same from our window, river flexing, buses sighing, a gull stealing a corner of sky, yet the room has shifted by a degree you can't measure with a thermostat. The residual plot floats in the center screen, patient, exact, unhurried. Ben powers the studio wall from standby to ready and leaves it there, a ritual that feels like putting a hand on a shoulder you trust. Maya sits with the archive open on her laptop, its directory tree neat as a spine. Aaron signs the last internal note with the line we earned and never rehearsed. We observed, we asked, we refused to name what we do not know. I hover my fingers above the recorder, then switch it off, the red eye going dark without drama. We promise the night a witness. The morning asks for a steward. We give it both. The open log sits on the intranet with its dull title and extraordinary calm. Timestamps stack like careful footprints. Hashes repeat. There is no headline. There is a door, archive available by request, contents enumerated, no interpretive claims. The first requests arrive from places that smell like work: Flagstaff, Pasadena, a community college in Ohio that recognizes our cadence and asks for our Ross with a politeness that doubles as courage. We send them. We send everyone who speaks the small language of proof. Outside our glass, the newsroom performs the day, mayor, market, weather. A producer glances in, registers nothing theatrical, and moves on. That feels right. We did not build a stage. We built a record. Maya closes the folds and lets her hands rest on the table, palms down, as if feeling for a vibration you only notice when you stop listening for it. It'll drift out of the feeds, she says, voice level. Maybe by tonight. Good, Aaron answers. Truth does better when it isn't famous. Ben drafts the brief we'll pin at the top of the log, plain as a sidewalk, next windows, responsible asks, what not to infer. He prints 2 copies and leaves one on my keyboard, the other on the console where the rec light used to keep us honest. I slide the paper a thumb's width so the edge lines with the bezel. The alignment feels like manners. I step to the window. Hudson water blinks like a machine that doesn't owe us an explanation. I think of the cadence we folded against the world and the word we chose not to say. We didn't prove a message. We watched a protocol do its work on something we cannot see. Threat or quarantine, design or nature, warning or lock, those stay outside the sentence, like weather beyond glass. My job is smaller. And harder. Keep the archive clean. Keep the verb simple. Keep the door open. A local radio host calls my cell and asks if we believe. I tell him we count. He sighs, not disappointed, just return to gravity. Okay, he says, then we'll count with you. He doesn't. But the offer hangs there like a light left on for late arrivals, and I don't turn it off. At noon we take the segment we agreed to take. No more. Residuals on screen. Policy read aloud like a pledge. A request, to colleagues, to amateurs, to whoever keeps sky hours when cities sleep. No adjectives. When it ends, our phones don't erupt. The world, for once, respects quiet. I shut down the console. The room holds its chill the way a chapel holds shadow. Ben pockets his badge and nods at the log's steady scroll. Aaron leaves a post-it with nothing but a date. Maya lingers by the door, listening to the HVAC's slow pulse, the nearest thing to a heartbeat the building owns. I stand where the rec light lived through the night and touch the empty space like it might still be warm. We did not solve anything. We held it long enough to remain unbroken. The archive breathes on the screen, small, exact, unhurried. Outside, the city resumes its believing. Inside, we add one last line to the log, standing by, windows posted, witnesses welcome. The monitors don't blink. We do. And somewhere between the river and the sky, a cadence we did not write keeps its appointment, on time, with no audience at all.